Another tragedy happens, and before we even knew all the facts, the usual people were coming out to blame video games, blaming the prevalence of guns, blaming toxic masculinity, the usual culprits really coming out and saying, this is because of Gamergate, this is because of everything under the sun except for the real issues. And the real issues are starting to come out. Once we get more facts, obviously mainstream media will start to pick up on it. They won't stop talking about the talking points that the regressive left has talked about for the better part of 10, 20 years. But at this point in time, even they have to come out and say, you know what, we need to talk about this. As witnesses come out and say, I'm not going to blame guns for this, or I'm not going to blame video games, because quite frankly, there's no reason to blame video games for what happened. You still had Kotaku and Polygon coming out and saying the usual crap that we've come to expect from them. You have Brianna Wu tweeting about how this is a toxic culture, and I'm with you in solidarity, gamers, and when I'm a sitting member of Congress, I'll put a stop to this. I will fight to upend this because I'm a gamer too. Except Brianna Wu's not a gamer. He's a leech. She's a leech. Wouldn't want to misgender, would I? The truth of the matter is that this has nothing to do with the prevalence of guns. It doesn't have anything to do with toxic masculinity. It doesn't exist. It has nothing to do with video games itself. If it did, it wouldn't have happened at a Madden tournament. It would have happened at a Street Fighter tournament. It would have happened at Call of Duty, Battlefield, an actually violent game. Oddly enough, it happens at Madden. How does that work? How can you blame video games for that? Don't get me wrong. There's an argument to be made, and it's one that I've debated several times. Are children becoming desensitized because of video games? There's an argument to be made that yes, some children are, but how much of that is because parents aren't involved? The truth of the matter is that every time a mass shooting like this happens, the parents inevitably try to shift focus away from their terrible parenting, their lack of actually paying attention to such things. Parents have pushed it off onto computers and the television and Xbox in order to take care of their children while they go along, with their day. At the end of the day, however, they are to blame for this. How much of this could have been stopped by a parent actually going, I might want to be more in touch with my child? Because every parent, when they do this, will say, I was a part of my child's life and I didn't see any of this. A lot of these people have mental illness to begin with. Why weren't they seeing a psychologist? And that's exactly what's going on with the Jacksonville shooter. Again, police called on him. He had mental illness, and just like, what was his name? Nicholas Cruz? The kid who shot up Parkland? Police didn't do their job. Health professionals apparently didn't do their job, and that's because mental health professionals rather, are medicating. These kids are going to psychiatrists who medicate rather than actually do the psychological work that a psychologist will. A psychologist's job is not to help you, is not to heal you, is not to fix you. They teach you how to learn with your disability. Yes, there are some issues that will require medication. Bipolar disorder, depending on severity, will require something like lithium to bring a balance in the chemicals. At the end of the day, though, parents are to blame for this. Parents not looking after their children. Parents not looking and doing what is expected of them. When you have that kid, there are expectations for you. You have a lot of stuff placed on you. I'm not a father. I help take care of my brother and sisters because both my parents worked to give us a better life. I'd get home from school and do my homework. I would help my brother and sisters with homework. And anytime my parents could be part of that life, our lives, they would be. All four of us grew up into, well, we turned out all right. There were some hiccups along the road, and we corrected it. My brother became a drug addict, corrected himself. He's probably the one in the family that I have the most respect for because he overcame his addiction and he bettered himself. Probably the most productive member of my family, to be completely honest with you. Jacksonville shooter had history of mental illness and police visits to family home. This is from CNN, so take it with a grain of salt if you want. I can't say that you're wrong to do so. David Katz, the shooter, killed 2 people and wounded 10 others before taking his own life at an esports tournament in Jacksonville, Florida on Sunday, was in treatment for psychiatric issues at least as early as the age of 12, according to family divorce records. Now, there's an issue, the divorce. At an age like that, that's a child who's easily imprinted. When he sees something like that, no matter how much you tell the children, this isn't because of you. At that age, they're going through hormonal changes. They're going through body chemistry changes. They're not going to believe you. This is why, especially in middle school and high school, the clique mentality, the urge to fit in, to find acceptance is so strong. So when you say it's not your fault, they don't believe you. Okay, they don't. When my parents divorced, my youngest sister was about 14, 15. She blamed herself for a bit. From what I understand, she blamed herself for a bit, despite my mother and father saying, it's not your fault. What are you going to do? You can only do so much. Katz, who was 24, was prescribed a number of psychiatric medications, including an antipsychotic, and saw a succession of psychiatrists, according to a 2006 letter from the father's attorney. A separate 2006 court filing states that a therapist said David had experienced a psychiatric crisis. Right there, why wasn't he committed? Okay, why wasn't he committed? If he was having an actual psychiatric crisis, why wasn't he committed? What's going on there? Why are you sending him to psychiatrists who are just prescribing more and more pills? Why isn't he getting actual treatment? Once again, psychiatrists are doing exactly what parents do. They're foisting everything onto something else, and they're trying to take it and they're attempting to. It's really hard to say because I'm not a psychiatrist. I'm not a psychiatry-oriented person. I'm a psychology-oriented person. Psychology is not an exact science, so it's kind of hard to say. CNN also obtained police records that show 26 calls for service to the police from the Katz family home in Columbia, Maryland from 1993 to 2009 for issues ranging from mental illness to domestic disputes. At least 2 of those calls involved Katz arguing with his mother, though none of the reports provided to CNN show any physical violence. The Howard County Police Department declined to release the reports from a number of incidents, citing statutory restrictions. 1993, I mean, 2 of them were for him. The rest were apparently for his parents. That's a broken home. That right there is a broken home. That is a child who in his developmental stages is going to be broken. So these parents are probably going to say, we didn't see this coming. Yeah, you did. You did because you were the contributing factor to all of this. And instead of being a good parent, you decided to throw him on Ritalin or Adderall or something like that. Since Sunday's shooting, the family has told investigators that David Katz suffered from mental health issues, according to a law enforcement source who described the family as being very cooperative with investigators. Both parents have worked for the federal government. Richard Katz is a NASA engineer employed at the Goddard Space Flight Center outside Washington, D.C., according to an agency spokesperson. Elizabeth Katz was listed as an employee of the FDA at the time of her divorce. Neither Elizabeth nor Richard Katz could be reached by CNN for comment. The court records reveal a divorce and custody battle that was so acrimonious both parents filed to have a guardian ad litem assigned to represent the interests of David, their younger son. They strongly disagreed about his mental health treatment. From what I remember, a guardian ad litem is somebody who the court listens to with regards to the health and well-being of the child because neither parent can agree on anything, and so the court needs to intervene to try to make sure the child is taken care of. The fact that both parents filed for it, normally it's if a parent files at all, it'll be one parent. But the fact that both parents, okay, maybe they did some good for this child, or they tried to. Court documents state that Kat suffered emotionally as a child and was prescribed psychiatric drugs, including Lexapro, an antidepressant, and risperidone, an antipsychotic medication sometimes used to treat schizophrenia. Ooh, okay, that's a big thing. Schizophrenia is not very fun. It's not very easy to deal with. That would be something that you would medicate for. It's not something a psychologist can really deal with. And I can't fault them for going to a psychiatrist at that point. But the antidepressant, that's psychology territory. I've dealt with depression. I have. I've learned to live with it. You don't do that by popping pills. Kat's mother took him to see a number of psychiatrists as well as a social worker and art therapist, according to a 2006 letter from the father's attorney. His father disputed the necessity of the drugs, and a psychiatric evaluation sought by David's mother, suggesting that his son instead attend a support group for middle school students. Richard Katz has seen no evidence whatsoever of schizophrenia in David Katz, a motion from his father's lawyer said. Now here's where I start to wonder. The mother's pushing the pills, I guess. The father's saying, I never saw any of this. Seems like either the father was willfully ignorant, because a mental issue would be very noticeable if it was to the point of schizophrenia. He was either willfully ignorant, or the mother, or the mother is just doing this in order to keep the child calm and not a bother for her. The fact he was taking it after he came to the age of majority, I am more willing to believe that there was something going on there. On one occasion, according to a document from the father's lawyer, Katz strongly reacted to the notion of going to an appointment and locked himself in the car. The boy was then faced with the prospect of being put in handcuffs by the police. The day after his 13th birthday, police were called to the mother's Columbia home to help with her son because of the volume of the television and his overall lack of respect toward her and his grandmother, according to a police report. Really? You just beat the child. There you go. I mean, once again, we're seeing right now the mother tried to push everything off on others in order to better her own position or to not have to deal with it. What the hell? And this mother's going to say, I never saw anything coming like this. I was part of my child's life. Everything I'm reading right now says the mother didn't care. He pushed that kid out and she just didn't care after that. The day after his 14th birthday, according to another police report, Katz called police to the home because his mother keeps punishing him by taking away his video games. Well, yeah, that's... Mom, congratulations. You raised your kid to be like you. I don't like something, so I'm just going to call the police. Jesus Christ. Katz attacked fellow competitors at a Madden NFL video game tournament at the downtown shopping complex, Jacksonville Landing, after losing a game earlier in the day, according to survivor Alexander Medunik. He killed himself with his own handgun, according to Sheriff Mike Williams. Katz legally purchased a 9mm handgun and a .45 caliber handgun back home in Maryland in the last month, according to officials. One of the weapons had a laser sight that attached to the gun, officials said. It's unclear how he transported the weapons and extra ammunition to Jacksonville or how he got them into the event. This guy's on psychiatric medication. That sounds like a gun store owner, assuming that he bought it like that, didn't do any kind of background check. Weird. And that's where they're going to say the prevalence of guns is the reason for this. That's where they're going to get that talking point. No, it sounds like a gun store owner didn't do their job, or he bought one off of Craigslist. It says he legally purchased, so I'm going to assume it's a gun store that he did it until I see otherwise. Federal gun law prohibits anyone who has been committed to a mental health institution against their will or adjudicated mentally incompetent from legally purchasing a firearm. A clinical history of psychological issues does not preclude someone from buying a gun, and such medical records are considered private, protected patient information. Here's where I have to disagree with the law, and even I'll say this. When you are taking medication for schizophrenia, that absolutely should be made public knowledge on a query check or on the checks to buy a gun. Absolutely. All right, that is mental incompetence. You don't know what he's going to do with it. You don't know if he's going to have a schizophrenic breakdown and shoot someone. So that's a part of the law, I agree, needs to be rewritten. Since 2013, residents in Maryland must obtain a handgun qualification license from the state police before purchasing a pistol or revolver. That means Katz would have submitted his fingerprints, undergone a background check, and passed a firearms safety training course to buy those guns. CNN visited Katz's former stepmother in northern Baltimore. There, a man who declined to identify himself said they knew Katz played video games, but they were unaware he owned a firearm. Most recently, Katz's father has been living near Federal Hill in Baltimore at a home search by law enforcement after the shooting. Katz attended Hammond High School in Columbia. CNN spoke to several graduates who remembered him. Tiandra Montana, who graduated a year ahead of Katz, remembered him as a video gamer who was antisocial. I'm a video gamer and I'm kind of antisocial. That doesn't mean that you're going to grow up into a rampaging lunatic. Once again, if you have a stable family, if you have a stable life, you're less likely to break from reality so significantly that something like this happens. Sounds like you didn't have that. He stayed to himself. He didn't talk much, Montana said. He was a good guy. I couldn't imagine him doing such things. Drew Ford, who graduated in 2011 alongside Katz, only spoke to him a few times, but he remembered his reserved demeanor. He was a quiet kid, but when you talked to him, he seemed cool, Ford said. 3 years after graduating high school, Katz started to attend classes at the University of Maryland, according to university spokeswoman Katie Lawson. He enrolled in September 2014 and was not registered for classes this fall. He lived off campus and majored in environmental science and technology. University of Maryland President Wallace D. Lowe issued a public statement that referenced yet another mass shooting that occurred at a newspaper in Annapolis, just a short drive away from Katz's hometown. Our community grieves for the families of those who lost their lives in yesterday's horrific shooting in Jacksonville. When our community was directly impacted by the shooting in Annapolis this summer, I said that more than silent reflection is needed to end the epidemic of gun violence in our country, and I will say that again today. Now, as I said, this is not a case, at the end of the day, of guns being too easy to get. I agree, part of the law needs to be rewritten, and some information needs to be made available when you do these background checks. You don't have to tell people, hey, this guy was on this medication. You don't have to tell them he was adjudicated schizophrenic. Just a flashing light saying, hey, this guy's not a good option. Don't sell him a gun. And there you go. You don't have to make that information public to the average gun store owner. His family was not there. His family failed him at a crucial time in his life, a developmental stage. And yet, I guarantee you, because I haven't seen anything yet, the family's going to blame the video games. They're going to blame Big Pharma because of the psychiatric medications. They're going to blame the gun industry because he got a gun. They're going to blame everybody but themselves. And at the end of the day, this is just proof positive that the broken families that we have, okay, I'm gonna, whatever you want to call it, moral fag or whatever, the broken families that we have right now are helping to push this out there. And with it being made public so often, either to push an agenda or because it sells news and sells clicks, it's gonna keep happening. It's gonna keep happening because there's nothing to stop it. If you're going to have a kid, you need to accept responsibility for that child. And these parents refuse to. These parents, more often than not, refuse to do so. Why? Because it's too hard. And I can only imagine what these kids from broken homes who are now starting to have children of their own, how fucked up are those children going to come out?